everyone. Welcome again to the BATTASS podcast, the Batman the Animated Series show podcast, where we talk about Batman the Animated Series. My name is Clay McCormick, and with me, as always, is Sean Murphy. How you doing, Sean?
Hey, dude, I'm so glad to be back. I mean, we're under quarantine now, and this gives me something like a social outlet, you know?
I know everything's turning to Skype and video calls now. I thought it was really funny how for years, they kept pushing video calling for years as like the future technology that's in all sci-fi stuff. Don't you want to live in the future? But no one wanted to use it because, as soon as people can see what you look like when you're talking to them, you have to care about what you look like when you're talking on the phone.
Yeah.
But
exactly.
now, I guess it took one pandemic to push us into Blade Runner. So
One of the many things that, Total Recall got wrong until now.
yes, yeah.
It's funny. I actually wish I had bought stock in Zoom before all this,
I know,
because
right?
the amount of free plugins Zoom is getting, it's like we should do a Zoom thing, a Zoom drink, a Zoom this, a Zoom that. It's I don't know why Skype missed the boat on this or how Zoom came into favor.
Yeah, I had never even heard of it until this happened. So,
Yeah. Same
which
here.
is fairly suspicious, if you ask me.
Oh boy, here we go.
I've
I've been a
someone
flat
might want
earther.
to check on whether or not there's a connection, but that's for a different show.
I think it's a Chinese company
Well, there you
that
go.
specialized in bat experimentation. Do
Case closed.
you think there's a connection?
Speaking of bat experimentation,
Hey, I got us there.
we're back for season 3. Sorry we've been gone for so long. Lots of things going on and whatnot. But yeah, we're back for season 3, which I'm excited about because especially with these episodes, because these first 2 that we'll be doing will be Shadow of the Bat Part 1 and Part 2. So we're going to take a quick break, and we'll come back and talk about those. Shadow of the Bat, Part 1 and Part 2, written by, you know what, I'm gonna fuck this up if I don't look, so give me 2 seconds and I'll do that again.
Yeah, sure. I'll fill in the silence with some really interesting. This actually made me think a lot about Batgirl, who I never thought a lot about until recently when I was asked to write her and to expand on her. And I actually, I'm putting together a pitch now for a Batgirl story, and I'm starting off with what the hell do I want to say about Batgirl? And I talked to 2 people that really helped me, and I'll get into this later. But yeah, I've had her on my mind a lot lately, so it's kind of really helpful that this episode popped up exactly when it did.
Well, that's great. We'll definitely have to talk about that because, I've always been a fan of the character, and I'm glad to see her in the show.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so Shadow of the Bat, Part 1 and Part 2, both written by Bryn Stevens, both directed by Frank Power. And in these episodes, when Commissioner Gordon is framed for taking bribes from Rupert Thorne, his daughter Barbara pleads with Batman to show up at a rally being put on in the Commissioner's behalf. But when Batman disappears after finding the person behind the frame-up, Barbara takes the law into her own hands as Batgirl. Robin discovers that Gil Mason is in league with the underworld and goes to investigate him. He encounters Batgirl along the way and go their separate ways to stop Mason. I thought it was doing so well in that first half, but the second one could have been restructured a little bit better.
Have you ever written a Wikipedia entry?
I don't. Wouldn't even know how to. I'm old in that respect. They
Yeah.
then meet again to learn that Gil
Sorry,
is
I thought you
working
were
with.
done.
No, it's all right. They then meet again to learn that Gil is working with Two-Face to take out Gordon and have Batman as Matches Malone captured. This episode marks the series debut of Barbara Gordon as Batgirl. We talked a little bit about what's that?
Yeah, she was Barbara before, right?
Yeah, we
We've
talked a
seen
little
her.
bit about her as Barbara when she showed up once or twice in last season. Yeah,
Right.
but this is her first outing as Batgirl, and it's actually kind of funny because third season of Batman in 1966 is when they added Batgirl to that as well.
Oh yeah. I didn't know that so recently.
Yeah, and her character actually, the Barbara Gordon iteration of Batgirl, I think I mentioned this when we talked about her initially, but we may as well talk about it again. She debuted in January of 1967 in Detective Comics, and it was a direct result of her appearance on the Batman Adam West TV show that they brought her into the
Right.
comics, which is pretty interesting because that's a pretty substantial addition to
Yeah.
Batman. You know?
Yeah, it's funny that no one thought of that sooner. Like, look at he's endangering a young male child. Why
Yeah,
not a female?
yeah. And I think, and she existed. A character called Betty Kane was introduced in 1961 by Bill Finger and Sheldon Moldoff as Bat-Girl. And I
Ugh,
believe, if I remember correctly, I think she was actually the daughter of Batman and
Robin.
Catwoman. Yeah, and Robin. She's either the daughter of Batman and Catwoman or the daughter of, I don't remember. I don't know. But
Yeah,
she didn't last that long. Was not super popular. Replaced by Barbara Gordon. And Barbara Gordon
right.
is makes much more sense, I think, as a
Yeah,
character. And
yeah.
Batgirl has been multiple characters over the years. She has been Barbara Gordon. She's been a character named Cassandra Cain for a while in the
Mm,
90s. Then she was Stephanie Brown for a while, but she is now once again
mm,
Barbara Gordon after a lengthy stint in a wheelchair after getting paralyzed by the Joker in Alan Moore's The Killing Joke, famously.
mm.
And there's always a big debate over what is the preferred version of Batgirl. Oh, sorry, of Barbara Gordon, whether it's Batgirl or whether it's as Oracle. And I think they're both pretty cool characters in their own right. But
Yeah, I don't know a lot about Oracle, honestly. I teased it in Curse of the White Knight.
mhm.
I had her in a wheelchair. Her back got sort of busted up, and I decided I had murdered so many characters and done so many shitty things to these people. I should probably have some kind of levity here. So Batgirl bounces back, which ended up being a thing that my the Batgirl editor told me is that's one of her favorite things about Batgirl is Batgirl she falls down, but she always gets back up. That's kind of her
Yeah,
thing, which
yeah,
I didn't know.
yeah.
I didn't think about that.
Yeah, and one of the great things about her as Oracle, I mean, not to turn it into a comics podcast, but is that she is someone who is so capable and then is literally her legs are taken away from her and she has to figure out how to remain capable and be arguably be even more capable in her new situation.
Right.
It's a good setup for good stories.
Yeah. I never read or knew much about I think it was the late 90s version of Batgirl, where her face is all covered in leather.
Yeah, that's
It's,
the Cassandra Cain version.
yeah, that's right. Do you know anything about that?
I know that she, from what I remember, she was a mute for a long time, and she is the daughter of another guy named Kane, who was like the leader
Hmm.
of the League of Assassins, and is one of the guys who trained Batman. So she's got this like
Okay.
supervillain lineage, and she's like an amazing fighter and stuff. But
Right, right.
I didn't read a ton of it when she was Batgirl.
Yeah, no, I looked at that and I just rolled my eyes just because I'm like, ugh, you can't see her face. It's just so dark and S&M. And, I didn't give it a chance, honestly. It might be really good for all I know.
Alex Maleev designed costume.
Oh, really? Oh, great. Well,
Yeah.
next time I hang out with Alex, I'll have to answer for that.
But yeah, getting into the episode, how do you like this one?
I liked it a lot. This was always a standout for me, and the theme song always stood out to me. Just this very clear like da 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 da. I mean, I
Mm,
thought it was great, and I like how I don't really know a lot about her before this episode, and I don't honestly think I knew Batgirl was a thing until I saw this show. And again, I was like 12 or 13. And I thought, oh, well, I guess it makes sense that there's a Batgirl, just like there's a Robin. I didn't watch the Adam West stuff, so I wasn't aware of the character at all. And,
mm,
I was young enough to just kind of accept anything the show showed me. But I had never really thought that the universe needed a Batgirl either. And as a 12-year-old male, I think my first thought was, I don't know. She's a girl. I don't care about girls. This is dumb.
hmm
But I do remember thinking the episode was really well done, especially the action scene with the flooding subway and
Yeah, yeah.
animation wise, there's so many great things happening here. And I didn't really realize that I really liked Batgirl a lot until I started writing her, and she ended up being one of the sort of surprises in my script. I'm like, man, I really like writing Barbara Gordon. I never really knew I gave a shit about her until I started to use her as the heart of the team. The one who's balanced. Her dad's alive.
Mm.
Well, at least in every other Batman book. But what about you? What's your history with her?
Um, I I watched the '66 show when I was younger, so I had always been aware of her.
Yeah.
So it wasn't really out of at all that strange when she showed up in the cartoon. It was more or less expected. But I don't think I had seen these episodes in, God, 20 years.
Yeah.
And I really liked them. I liked them a lot. The two things that I really liked about this, the animation was great, a lot of great action, but story-wise, the things that I really liked were that her reason for dressing up as dressing up as Batman, essentially,
Right.
was in service of her dad. So she's Batman has rejected her request to show up in support of Gordon, so she takes it on herself to do it.
Right. That's important.
And
too.
I also really like that she's not good at it right away. That
I forgot she fumbled. She like grabs this banner to get out of the way of a car. She accidentally pulls the banner down and blinds the car and stops them from getting away at first. Like she fumbles into it, but she actually manages to help out in her own way.
Yeah, I always appreciate that when you've got characters who are not inherently super soldiers, for lack of a better term, like someone who doesn't have Batman's training trying to do what Batman does and not being really good at it.
Yeah.
But being good enough that she can eventually get the job done. I always like that stuff.
I like they introduce her on the gymnast beam doing some back rolls and stuff. So you know that she's flexible and got the basics there. Somehow she gets her hands on a grappling hook and is able to swing from building to building, which,
I don't even know. At some point she goes through like a dark office and gets a grappling hook and some smoke bombs. And I don't know. I must have missed it because I don't know where the hell she was.
Yeah.
But she just opened like a desk drawer and pulled out 2 smoke grenades.
Yeah, that's the thing. Like in the movies and the comics and some of the shows, like it's always Robin or Alfred sneaking her a few items that she can use, helping her fill her bat belt with some things. I guess, as it was explained to me by the Batgirl editor, the reason that she likes Batgirl, she sort of elbowed her way into the boys' club.
Right.
And Batman never really drafted her. She just sort of insisted on showing up, and it was up to Robin or Nightwing or Alfred to help her become included.
Right. Yeah, I've always found that interesting because I mean, obviously, once you prove yourself, you prove yourself. But if I was Batman, I feel like I would be entirely in the right to say to her, "Listen, you can't just do this. This is, like if Robin and maybe Robin and Alfred just kind of don't take it as seriously as Batman does, but I would understand if Batman was consistently kind of annoyed that Batgirl kept showing up.
Yeah.
But again, if she's getting the job done, she's getting the job done. What the hell?
And knowing that she's Gordon's daughter and not knowing whether or not Gordon knows at first, there's kind of a liability there. I mean, things are already a little unusual as it is.
Yeah. And that's why I always I think that's another one of the reason I love Barbara Gordon as Batgirl is because of that dichotomy you have where it's built in perfectly as a superhero alter ego problem that she is that she's Jim Gordon's daughter.
Right.
As you kind of got into a little bit in Curse of the White Knight, if people find out that she is helping be a vigilante, this could invalidate like every case Jim Gordon has ever closed,
Right. Yeah.
It's a big deal.
Exactly. Yeah. So I can't say what I'm doing now, but I am writing and pitching the Batgirl story. So I did what I always do, and I don't dive into the comics at all. I just ask people around me who know more about the characters what they want to see. So I reached out.
That's how I got it. That's how I got through high school and college. So.
I'm like, because I'm like, all right. So I know about Batgirl from the animated series. I didn't really give a shit about Batgirl, and I started writing White Knight. I realized I do give a shit about Batgirl. She's awesome. I seem to get some things right. I had a lot of female readers telling me I got it right. A lot of male readers too, which they're obviously important as well. When they asked me to write Batgirl, and they wanted like a romance twist, I was like, what makes you think I would write good romance. And my editor, she says, well, you've got like Batman and Harley, and it's unusual for men to write compelling romance, but I think you're just sort of naturally good at it. And I was like offended but thankful all at the same time. I'm like, I'm not good at romance. You're good at romance. It's just not a thing that I necessarily set out to do.
You specifically intended to write a shitty romantic story in Curse of the White Knight, and you honestly just fell backwards into it.
I mean, with the first one, it was a love story between Joker and Batman, where
Right.
Joker thinks he's in a relationship, Batman doesn't, and Joker breaks up with Batman, gets mad, takes his lover's revenge on him. They end up having a shirtless fighting scene on top of a roof, and they settle the old-fashioned way.
Yeah.
What do you mean in Curse? What did I? What
Oh no,
love
I was just talking about the Harley and Batman thing in Curse of the White Knight.
Oh yeah, I remember telling you very early on, like I think I can get them together, and you're like, don't do that. There's no way at all. You can't do that. And I remember asking you, like, I think I have a scene where it makes sense for them maybe to kiss, and you were like, don't do it. Like,
Nope.
You were impressed that I had taken it so far, but you're definitely hitting the brakes on me on them kissing.
Yeah, I think.
And so did my wife, by the way.
Yeah, my personal preference is for that not to happen. At least not in that book, anyway.
I don't like it when Batman kisses in costume. I just think it's fucking weird looking.
Yeah.
And I know, like, Jim Lee draws an amazing Batman, Catwoman kissing in the rain. I just no, I can't do it. I don't know what it is.
I like it. I like the Neil Adams stuff where he makes out with Talia al Ghul, but he doesn't have a shirt on, but he has the mask on still.
That's
so
different.
he's got
for some reason that's okay.
glorious chest hair, but he's still got his mask on because you can't. You got to keep some mystery alive in relationships,
So I talked to my friend who edits Batgirl books, and I talked to my editor on Curse, not you, my round 2 editor, which is my DC editor, Maggie Howell, and I got a bunch of notes on Batgirl, and I discovered some really interesting things about this. One is she gets hit, she always gets back up. That's her thing. She has a cocky attitude. She's feisty. She's able to be fiery and feisty in a way that she wouldn't be able to do as a cop. So if she wore a badge, she wouldn't be able to give pushback like she does. By being a vigilante, she's able to express herself this way, which is interesting. Which comes to the next point. Why is she dressed up as a vigilante and not just become a cop like her dad? And you can dive into that however you want, depending on your flavor of Batgirl. I haven't really decided yet, personally. And then the third thing is, okay, so she's going to be a vigilante. Why not come up with her own character, like, Ranger Girl or Ginger Woman or something, redheaded chick, whatever.
Yeah, Ginger Woman, yes. Really thinking outside the box with that one.
Oh man, my Australian friend, Ranger is what you call a redheaded girl in Australia. I don't know if that's offensive or not. If it is, I apologize. But I don't know.
Ranger is actually not a bad superhero name.
Ranger?
As long as it's not offensive, it's kind of cool sounding.
We'll have to make sure that's not like the N word in Australia for redheads.
Yeah, please, let's check on that before I put this out.
So she wants to be a vigilante, but why dress up as Batman? And for that reason, why didn't Robin become Batboy? Why become the Robin? Why any of these questions? And there's no straight answer. You can go which way you want with it, which is interesting. And then it gets into further stuff like, why does she live with her dad? Is her dad divorced? Did she choose to live with her dad over her mom? Is this a version of Gordon who cheated on her mom? Did her mom die? So, I mean, there's like 10 different things you need to decide on before you can really start to write the character. And I honestly haven't decided on those things. So I don't know what your thoughts are on all that. But when I started asking around about Batgirl, I got a lot more than I thought I would. And I'm really glad I asked, because I don't think my straight white brain, my man brain, would have necessarily asked these questions,
She loves steak and
weightlifting.
Yeah. And chains. She never heavy chains.
She never asked for directions. That's what the Ranger does. We're just going to assume that's not offensive.
Yeah, there's going to be a lot of bleeping in this one if it is. Yeah, well, what I like about this episode is, like, as I was saying, the reason that she picks Batman is like she never intends to become a vigilante. She sort of falls backwards into it.
Yeah, exactly.
And then just commits to it, which I think is a lot of fun because it's I think it does fit her personality really well, because you do see that she's got a little bit of an edge to her, and she is the thing that is at stake here is her father's life, essentially.
Right.
And so she kind of falls backwards into this Batgirl thing, and she continues down that road in order to help clear her dad's name, instead of taking the time to head down to the brand manager and get a new outfit.
Yeah,
and,
to Brandon Brandanowitz, whatever.
Yeah, Brandon Brandanowitz. And what the other thing that I really love is that she never really there's nothing sycophantic about her. Like, she's not trying to prove anything to Batman or Robin. She's just there also trying to help clear her dad's name. It's not like she's not actively trying to be like, I want to be part of the club. I want to be a superhero too.
Yeah.
She's not like the what's the character from The Incredibles, the sidekick guy who's like the suck up to The Incredibles. In the first one, I don't remember, but he ends up being the bad guy.
The Jason Lee character, yeah.
Yes, yeah. She's not anything like that, where it's like, I love, which is actually kind of what Carrie Kelly is in Dark Knight Returns. In Dark Knight Returns as Robin, she's essentially, she makes a makeshift Robin costume and then just starts showing up trying to help Batman be Robin.
And he's so old and out of his mind. He's like, yeah, whatever, you can do this.
Yeah, sure, whatever. You look like a young boy. It's fine. Also, my favorite part of this episode is after they save Matches Malone and Robin brings him his Batman suit in a suitcase, and he opens it, and Bruce starts taking off his shirt, and he looks over at Barbara and he's like, "Do you mind?" And it's like, do you mind? I need to get dressed in front of this young boy now.
Yeah, you can't watch. Robin can watch me. You can't.
Yes.
Or else it's weird.
Yeah. That's the other thing about this episode. Batman kind of not a great day for Batman. He is not on his A game in this episode.
Dude, how many episodes are his disguise game is not there. There are so many episodes where he's hanging out in an alley with mustache, like you said before. Hey, anybody hear about any crimes?
Yeah.
He always gets caught. He seems like but then again, in Almost Got Him, he was Brock the whole time, and no one knew that.
That's true. He does a fantastic makeup job as Killer Croc in that episode, yes.
He's good in a full body suit, but if you have to put like just a mustache, he's not good at getting into character unless he totally commits to something like Croc.
And in this one, if you look at what he actually does in this episode, Jim Gordon's been framed for embezzling money and whatnot, and Barbara Gordon is like, he really needs your help. Can you just show up to this fundraiser? And Batman totally shuts her down.
Yeah.
And then spends the evening putting on costume makeup.
Yeah.
And then
buying
goes
a box
out
of matches. I'm gonna be matches. I wish I had a brand manager right now.
and then he goes out to the pool hall and just plays pool for like the next 20 minutes of the episode. He's just hanging, which has nothing to do with anything, and he just gets lucky that he runs into that Bucktooth guy. But after that, he tries to sneak in through that window and gets electrocuted. Not a great day for Batman.
Yeah, that threw me off. Like scaling a building dressed as Matches Malone, getting caught, getting electrocuted, and then being Two-Face had him hostage for most of the episode. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're right. Not on his A game.
Do you think he's a method actor?
Oh yeah.
Where like once
he's once
he puts the hat on, Robin has to refer to him as Matches, and if he doesn't, he just doesn't respond.
When Batgirl's like, "Can you just take 5 minutes and just show up, just on your way to play pool? Can't you do that?" He's like, "I'm sorry, I'm Matches Malone right now. I'm not Batman."
Yeah.
Like, you don't understand what it's like to get into character, Barbara. I just can't swing by a rally, do my thing, kiss some babies, and then just go play pool. This takes time,
Yeah, he puts that hat on, and then Alfred's like, "Master Bruce, you have to deal with Wayne Tech Enterprise." He's like, "I don't know, no Master Bruce. As you can see, I have my hat on. I am a man of the streets." And it just gets very tiring.
That's why in the episode where he forgets who he is, it's because he wakes up in a box.
Oh my God!
Dressed as a homeless guy.
I forgot. I was gonna bring that up. I was gonna say, thank God this time when he gets electrocuted, he doesn't wake up and forget who he is.
if he woke up dressed as Batman, he'd be like, "Oh yeah, I'm Batman." If he woke up as Bruce, I'm Bruce. But if he woke up as a costume he doesn't recognize, like a guy in a tank top with gray hair, he's
Yeah.
like, "What? I don't know what I'm thinking right now."
These matches must be a key to my personality.
Oh man, well, a few thoughts I had for this was there's
Hmm.
so many times that people should have run to the police and told them more information. So Batgirl should have told the police right away when she finds that the henchman is at Gill's, that bucktooth henchman.
Hmm.
She doesn't tell the
Hmm.
police when that happens. Robin
Hmm.
should tell the police when he sees footage of Gill ducking. And I like
Right.
that Gill ducks early. I like that that's the thing that Robin picks out. I think
Yeah.
it's clever. It's easy enough for a kid show. It's a good visual. I mean, a real cop would probably notice that too. It's perfect. However, Robin fails to tell the police. And then when they're both in the building looking through binoculars and they see Gill write down an address, they should both tell the police where they're about to be headed. And they don't do
Hmm.
any of that stuff.
Well, do they ever do that stuff though? It's bat. The show isn't Batman gets information and then calls the cops. It's not Good Samaritan Bruce Wayne. It's Batman and Robin.
Well, I guess. But I mean, Gordon is in trouble, and they need the police
Yeah.
should be
Well,
involved more
I
specifically with
think
this.
I think their choice of bad guy actually kind of buffers it for that reason because
Right.
this Gil, whatever his last name is, Gil character,
Mason.
Gil Mason,
Yep.
he kind of falls into the category of admiral on Star Trek: The Next Generation,
Right.
where they're always
Boy.
bad. And anytime on a show you bring in a new authority figure that is supposed to be like a good guy, he's always
Yeah.
the bad guy.
Well,
And
if they had thrown a line in, it's like we can't call the cops because Harvey Dent knows a lot of police and we don't know who we're talking to. They could have
well,
said
I don't
something like
even
that.
I don't even think they need to do that because of who he is, who this Gil character is.
Right.
I mean, it's
Oh, yeah.
Barbara Gordon's word against the new golden boy of the Gotham City Police Department, you know?
But don't you think
So
they
I
could have
think
had a line, just a quick line in there that says that? Because I don't think that's crystal clear, honestly. It just looks like they.
yeah, yeah, I'm surprised that they don't have a scene where Barbara tries to go by the book, so to speak, and like
Right.
tell Bullock or somebody.
Yeah,
or,
exactly.
or
Tell Bullock.
Montoya.
He's like he's waiting for an excuse to go rogue.
Well, I think what you would need Barbara telling someone who's not Bullock, someone just like or whoever Barbara tells, that person has to shut her down because for those reasons and be like, it can't be him. He's put
Right.
away more blah blah blahs and more gangsters in the
Right.
last month than I have my entire career, that kind of thing.
Yeah, yeah.
Which is then where she goes, all right, well,
Right.
the cops aren't going to do this. I do have this Batman outfit.
Hmm.
Let's see what I can get done,
Yeah. What do you think of Two-Face having planted a bomb in the subway that he luckily needed to flood the subway right after Batman showed up?
Yeah, sure.
So
That
set the-
reminds me of Skyfall, where part of what's his name? What the fuck is his name from No
yeah,
Country for Old
from
Men?
No Country.
Yeah, the bad guy. It's all part of his plan to get caught, and then part of that involves him having preset like a bomb in the subway. It's
Yeah.
like, whatever, sure.
Yeah, so Batman is Two-Face has matches Malone, who's Bruce Wayne, obviously, in the subway, abandoned. He's showing him to Gil. Do you know this guy? I found this guy. This guy's a snoop. Gil goes, no, I don't know who he is. Batgirl and Robin show up. There's an explosion of some kind. Batman and Robin are stuck in there, and Two-Face assumes they're dead, but just in case, he hits a button and blows up another bomb he planted for some reason that was between the subway tube and a reservoir. So now the subway starts to flood. I mean,
I have a bigger.
If he had just thrown a bomb into it and then water, like that would have made sense. But having pre-planted a bomb, that just seems a little bit weird.
I have a bigger problem with Two-Face. I do like that Gil actually calls this out sort of in a line of dialogue, but my problem that I have is with Two-Face calling Gil and telling him to come down to this clandestine location so he can ask Gil if he knows who this random guy he picked up is.
That's true.
And Gil's like, you called me down here so you could ask me if I knew who this guy was? Are you out of your mind? You couldn't do
Yeah.
this on the phone?
Why would he do that? Why would he even suspect that Gil knew who he was?
Yeah, he just picks up a random thug and he calls his money guy and is like, "I need you to come down and look at this
Yeah,
random guy."
like ask everyone else you know before you ask Gil. Gil's like only partially corrupted at this point.
Yeah, ask the bucktooth guy. He might know.
Yeah, that Bucktooth guy looks like someone else from Incredibles. I forget who. Oh man, I had it in my head when I was watching. I forget to write it down. Sorry, but he looks like the way that his face is with those teeth. I mean, that was a classic character right there.
Oh yeah, he's a great subtle thug character because yeah, it's just he's a big dude and he's just got big teeth, but
Was
he
he
stands out.
was he in some other episode, or was it there's another big burly guy that Batman identifies. His name's like Bull or something big like
I
that.
Yeah, I don't remember. They
Yeah,
all run together at this point.
yeah, that's true.
Um, did you
I oh,
notice?
go ahead.
Oh, go
Sorry.
ahead. No, go ahead.
I was gonna say I like so when the subway is flooding, Batman uses his grappling hook, puts some C4 on the end, and blows a hole through the
Yes,
ceiling. And I'm
that
thinking,
was cool.
great. Well, now how are you gonna get up there? And then Robin takes his out, and he's like, always bring it back up. And he
Hmm.
shoots it up, and Barbara's the first one that gets out of there, and she sends it back down, and Batman and Robin get flushed away by the water. And then, a minute later, they're standing on top of this subway that's projecting out. It's crashed through a wall, and now it's projecting out over what is now a waterfall. And Batman
Hmm.
grabs a handle off the side of the subway car, wraps it in wire, and uses that. I like the progression of that scene, and it's such a.
Yeah,
They could have had it like he always has an extra one. He always has a whatever. But they went the further distance to say he used his up. Robin gave his to Barbara. They now don't have any grappling hooks. Batman has
yeah,
some rope, obviously. He grabs this, and because he's like MacGyver with, a costume. I just thought that was a nice touch, and they didn't have to go that far, but they did.
yeah. I love that stuff. That stuff is great because the thing about having all those gadgets is it's always more fun when you take the gadgets away because you
Yeah,
got gadgets that can do amazing things, but it's when you end up in a situation where those things either don't work or they have been removed, that's when you get kind of
yeah,
really inventive with things. And I thought the same thing. I
right,
loved the manufactured grappling hook
yeah.
out of and the other thing. Well, first of all, I was thinking like I have seen Batman use these grappling hooks to swing around multiple people. I don't know why they all couldn't just grab onto one of them, or if they,
Oh
but
yeah,
it's not
yeah.
not that it matters because that wouldn't be a fun scene either.
You're right though.
Um,
Yeah, because he's him and Harley have swung up and down on the same one weight wise too. I mean, Batman's got to be 250. Harley's 100 pounds, so 350. Yeah, Barbara weighs as much as Catwoman, or sorry, Harley. Yeah, you're right. He should have just gone up two at a time.
yeah, yeah. So basically, this episode's terrible.
Exactly. I'm gonna
Yeah.
break it down to a one
Um,
now.
but I think there's a lot of little stuff like that I really appreciate. Little details. The other one I really liked was when I think it's right before they send Barbara up on the grappling hook.
Hmm.
Robin gives her two batarangs.
Yeah, I like that too.
So now she has actual Batman weapons,
Yeah,
which
that
is fun.
it was nice symbolism too, and that's what made me think about Alfred kind of hooks her up too from time to time in the continuity, I believe.
Yeah, in my head, that's the point where after she goes up, Batman turns to him and goes, "What is wrong with you?
We don't even know her.
Do you know how expensive those are?"
This is a nice storytelling touch, but I like that at the finale she is taking Gil out on her own on a boat, and the scene ends with her finishing him off or whatever by the Statue of Liberty, which the Statue of Liberty
Hmm.
Gotham is like holding a sword and shield. And actually, I used that in Curse of the White Knight as well. I made sure to reference that because I thought it was cool. But I thought it was
Nice.
neat that you have the Statue of Liberty, which is a symbol of female, a woman who's represents justice in the scene
Hmm.
where Barbara has just dealt out her own justice. And they actually have a shot that's just the Statue of Liberty, like they pan up to it.
Right.
So I feel like it's one of those subtle things that people probably didn't realize, but they felt. I love that stuff.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. Yeah. And they don't bring attention to it. It's not like this big moment where you've got Batgirl,
Hmm.
a low angle shot looking at Batgirl standing in front of the Statue of Liberty and she like salutes or some shit like
Yeah,
that.
no, that's like the
It's a
Michael
little
Bay
too on the
version.
nose.
Yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, they do. I mean, it's not, it's not like the flashiest episode as far as a lot of stuff. Like the story is fairly simple.
Mm-hmm.
There's not a ton of twists and turns to it,
Yeah.
but it's just a really well told
Yeah.
origin for her
Agree.
character. And it's not even really an origin because it's all characters that are pre-existing.
Yeah.
So you're not
It's
introducing anybody new.
Yeah, man, no, it's solid. I mean, it's not anything new. It doesn't reinvent the wheel, but there's no fat on it. Every scene, every bit of dialogue is basically necessary. Yeah, boom, boom, boom. They get through all of it. I thought it was really great.
Yeah. The one, even the animation, I didn't think the animation was, it didn't stand out to me the way some of the other ones have, like, the Clayface episode and
Yeah.
some of the other ones where it's like, oh man, they brought the A-team in for this. I thought it was fine. It
Yeah.
didn't feel like the cheap stuff. Although I feel like you've brought this up before. But did you notice that Bullock eats the pizza backwards?
Yeah, I was gonna say, when I saw that, I'm like, did I talk about this already?
I
Um,
think you've mentioned it like anecdotally, but
but
this is the first time that we've actually seen it.
was it a character choice, or did the team not know? So, all right, so people haven't seen our episode previously. My teacher in college did animation, and a lot of times when they sent their animations over to get animated in Japan or whatever, Korea, whatever, at the time, that country did not understand how to eat pizza. So you would have a scene to show a character eating pizza. So a lot of times the animation would come back with the character eating the pizza backwards because the Japanese or the Koreans or whoever it was just didn't know pizza. So in this scene, Bullock does the same thing. Is it because he's a pig who likes to eat crust first with the cheese falling out everywhere on him? Or was it just a miscommunication?
Well, I will say that I think the mid '90s was when Domino's or whoever came out with that stuffed crust pizza for the first time, and
Oh,
they
yeah.
started doing the ad campaign where they were like, "Eat the pizza crust first, like a sociopath."
Huh.
And so it might
Like a fat, like
maybe
a
it was
fat corrupt
just
cop would.
yeah, maybe it was just just cross marketing that they were like, we're going to take something of popular culture and put it in here. Probably not though. I don't think they
I
did
mean,
that.
so you need to make, so that would make it complicated because, like, dear, let's just assume this is animated in Japan. Dear Japanese, please have Bullock eating a pizza. But I know this is confusing for you because you don't have pizza there. Have him
That
eat
is
it
actually how
backwards.
you that is actually how you address letters to Japan, I believe.
Dear Japan.
Yeah.
Oh man. Sorry. Yeah. The one thing I loved about the ending, the last few lines, is you could kind of read
Hmm.
it either way, and I'm curious what you think of this. So in the very end, it's Bruce and Dick, not wearing costumes, standing kind of near Barbara, as Gordon is excused or whatever. Everyone realizes Gordon's innocent, and
Hmm.
Dick says to Batman, like, "Do you think we're going to see Batgirl again?" And Bruce is like, "Oh, I have a feeling that we haven't seen her for the last time." And Barbara says something too because she overhears them. Now, you can either take this one of two ways.
Hmm.
Either they all know each other's secret identities right now.
Hmm.
All that dialogue still tracks. Or you can assume they don't know anything about each other's identities. She's
Yep.
innocently overhearing a guy named Bruce behind her. She doesn't even know he might be Bruce Wayne or not. She could assume that those are just two weird lovers. One guy is much older, and they're just standing next to her in the crowd and making a comment to herself. How do you think that? What does that mean to you? The final few lines.
I think I take option B,
Hmm.
that they don't know that either one is talking about the other specifically.
Yeah.
And it just happens to be a coincidence.
Right.
Although, I mean, if we're being honest, Batman figured it out after like 5 minutes of talking to her. So,
Well, this wasn't clear that. Wait a minute. Did he find out she was Barbara Gordon?
no, they don't. They don't say. I'm just saying, like Batman, the character, generally would probably be able to figure it
I got
out
it.
very
Yeah.
quickly.
Because to skip to season 4, there's an episode where Batgirl dies. It's a dream sequence, and
Hmm.
Gordon gets pissed at Batman. He's like, "Why didn't you? You knew, didn't you?" And he goes, "I made it my business to know." And
Hmm.
he says, "Why didn't you tell me?" And he says, "It wasn't my place to tell you." I always thought that was interesting.
Yes.
If When did Batman decide to investigate who Batgirl really was, and what made him
Yeah.
decide not to
Well.
tell her, not to tell Dick, not to tell Commissioner
Yeah.
Gordon?
I think. again, I think he probably figures it out pretty quickly.
Right. Yeah.
Redhead concerned with the well-being of Jim Gordon, who, like Batman, you don't have to be the world's greatest detective to figure that one out.
But he happens to be that.
But he does, yes. So that does help. But yeah, I've always assumed that. I mean, that's one of the really interesting things with the Batman Batgirl Jim Gordon relationship is that he does know, and Gordon generally does not know.
Right.
And so he is allowing Gordon's daughter to be in I mean, not that it's his choice to necessarily stop her or whatever, but he's allowing Barbara Gordon to take a lot of risks.
Right.
And her father not knowing that one of his key allies is actually his own daughter it's an interesting thing, because once Gordon finds out, he's going to be pissed. Even if he's like, I always like Batgirl, good on you, Barbara. He's still going to be pissed at Batman.
Yeah, I mean, you could take it any way you want. I mean, what's more interesting if, why does she continue to be Batgirl? Why does she enjoy being a vigilante, which is sort of, by definition, against the law, when her dad is died in blue cop?
It's, actually, interestingly, I don't know if you've ever watched the cartoon Superhero Girls on Netflix.
No.
It's a DC Comics cartoon done by the woman who did Powerpuff Girls and
and the My Little Pony.
My Little Pony.
Yeah, I know.
And it's great. It's really, really good. And Barbara Gordon, Batgirl, is more or less the main character. And in that, very kind of quickly, they talk about how she became a vigilante as a way of like teenage rebellion against her cop dad.
Right.
And it's not. I mean, yeah, it's played very. It's a very played for laughs type show, but it is an interesting way to go.
Right.
And I mean, that's what makes her so fascinating. Is like she is one of. I'm trying to think if I can come up with another A-level superhero who doesn't have some sort of tragedy behind her origin, because she doesn't. No. She just decides she wants to do it. It's not like her mother was killed by the Joker or something.
Right.
Or, I mean, eventually when she becomes Oracle, she gets that trauma by, her paralyzation from the Joker.
Like for my book, I'm leaning. That's what I'm leaning towards. Is like she would be a cop, but maybe her dad is too protective and he wouldn't let her, and she knows that. Maybe she's too young. And maybe this is a way for her to get out there and make a difference, and to elbow her way into the boys' club, and get into the action, which is also a good motivation. I mean, she is a tomboy, and I think it totally works for her. She gets along great with men. She's not intimidated by men. She'll elbow her way in. Just, she can take the punches that the other guys can take, no problem. And that's why she becomes a vigilante. It must have to do with her father, whether or not he would approve or disapprove, or whether or not he would want her to be a cop in the first place. That's funny. The other thing that the editors pointed out to me is Barbara historically has never had any good positive female role models.
Sure. Yeah.
And you take that however you want. I mean, again, where is her mother? Is her mother alive? If she's alive, why is she choosing to live with her dad? My first thought was, Montoya could be kind of like a mother figure in a way, but in my book, all I really have for female, is Harley, Montoya, Leslie Tompkins. So I'm trying to think of like what I can do to give her a positive role model. But I think it's really interesting that she generally doesn't have one. And maybe it's because, comics for a long time were pretty sexist, mostly male characters or whatever. And she snuck in and, surprise, surprise, she's the first in the Gotham. So of course she doesn't have any role models. But I don't know what you think about that.
Yeah, it's I think a lot of the male characters have male role models for exactly that reason, where there's more, A-lister, or traditionally anyway, for a long time there were more A-lister male characters for these characters to look up to.
Right.
I've actually been reading a lot of Birds of Prey lately, the early Birds of Prey.
Yeah.
And she actually interacts with Leslie quite a bit.
Oh, interesting.
And this is after she's in the wheelchair, so she's Oracle at this point. And Leslie is very much trying to. She's the one who is trying to convince her that her being wheelchair bound is not like a death sentence, and that she is still very capable of being a whole person,
Right.
even though she's in this wheelchair.
Right.
And it's a nice dynamic. They don't do a ton of it, but when they do it, it's a nice. Actually, you know what? That wasn't Birds of Prey. That was Batgirl. I've been reading Batgirl as well. The Stephanie Brown Batgirl. There's actually it's a really nice thing that they do in that book, because you've got Leslie Tompkins helping out Barbara, who's clearly not in a great place about her life. And then you've got this other character, Stephanie Brown, who is essentially doing what Barbara did back in the day, where Stephanie's got she's got Cassandra Cain's bat suit, and she's putting it on and going out and being Batgirl and trying to be Batgirl. And so she crosses paths with Oracle, and it starts off with Oracle being like, you really shouldn't be doing this, and then, that kind of thing. And then they eventually come together, and Stephanie Brown becomes her own Batgirl with Oracle as her backup. But it's a nice story for her character to be kind of put in the middle of these two other great female characters, and see how they all kind of like work together. It's good stuff.
Right. Yeah. No, that's something I should probably read then, because I didn't know that existed. Yeah, that sounds good.
Yeah, it's Stephanie Brown's a character where I hope she gets a comeback in some sense, because the little that I've read about her, she's really fascinating. She's not to turn this into again, to do too much of a tangent about this stuff, but she started off as this other character named Spoiler. Then she became Robin, but Batman basically spent the entire time telling her that she was really bad at it. And that essentially giving her the talk that I was assuming he would give Barbara, where he's like, you're not cut out for this.
Right.
This is you're taking too many chances, blah 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 blah. And then she ends up trying to prove herself to Batman, which starts a gang war in Gotham and ends up getting herself killed.
Jesus, that got dark quick.
Yeah. Yeah. And then she comes back. I don't remember how they bring her back. I don't know, some sort of crisis or something happened, and somebody punches through time. I don't know.
Right. Yeah, of course.
But then they move her from instead of being Robin, she takes over as Batgirl. And it's been really good, the stuff I've been reading. But then they did the Rebirth thing or New 52 and just kind of scrapped her.
Right.
But she's a real interesting character.
Right. Do you think Barbara is interpreted by most readers as Barbara's sexy, or Barbara's kid sister character?
I don't think they're mutually exclusive. I think it probably depends on what she's doing. Like, I think in the and also in how she's being written, because I think in the context of the Bat family, she's probably more of a kid sister type. But at the same time, she and Nightwing have had a relationship in the past, and right, Nightwing, yeah, she was with Nightwing.
That's the thing, is they haven't really done the big Nightwing romance. That's what readers have been begging for a while. There was a one shot where they went on a date, and they've always teased the romance, but every time they get down that road, they restart the universe, and now it's the New 52, and they kind of put everything back. Yeah. That's one of the things that was explained to me by my editors, was we've never seen them get together for real. So that was one idea that they had.
That's really interesting that they've never pulled the trigger on that to like a full extent.
Yeah.
I don't know. That just seems like...
I'm like, you guys want to meet her?
I wonder why.
I don't know. That's the thing. It's like, now because White Knight is its own universe and I can do things without a lot of red tape, they're like, yeah, maybe they should get together. Hey, idiot, you can do it. You don't have to ask anybody. Yeah, throw it in there. See what you can do.
Yeah, you kind of have a blank check to do whatever you want with the characters at this point.
Like,
so what the hell?
Really? Like, I did political thriller. Like, I'm a romance writer. Like, yeah, sure, you could do that. Whatever. Batman and Harley, you made it happen.
Yeah, it's political romance. I don't know.
So that's
make Dick Grayson a senator or something. I don't care.
That's why when I was asked to do this, I'm like, well, I need to talk to people I know who really love Batgirl, and I want to get this right. I don't want to be accused of, doing it half-assed or whatever. But, the reason I asked you that question is because I look at characters like Catwoman, clearly mostly sexualized. Poison Ivy
Sure.
sexualized. Harley Quinn was Kid Sister character, but then
Yep.
she became more sexualized when they put her in the
Yep.
the cheerleader outfit. And even
Hmm.
when people draw the classic Harley, whenever they draw her as like TNA, it just to me it just never felt right. She's to me like the Kid Sister type character. Although yeah,
Right.
she's sexy. Like she's like I can a female friend I can admit is attractive, but it's different. You know what I mean?
Right.
And I always
Right.
felt like
Yeah.
Batgirl worked better as mostly the little kid type. Yeah, if she wanted to put on a cocktail dress, she would be attractive, but it's not the same as when Poison Ivy does it or when Batgirl does
Sure.
it or
Well, yeah.
Catwoman.
I think with Harley, uh, the reason you kind of can't escape that happening is because for a long time her defining characteristic was I'm in a destructive relationship with the Joker. So it's like she is a
Right.
until she got fleshed out, her defining characteristic was one of the romantic relationship she was currently in.
Yeah.
So, and then yeah, they, crazy apparently a crazy woman apparently means has lots of cleavage and short
Right.
shorts.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, at least
And
in comic book language anyway.
exactly. Yeah. So after talking to these two editors about all these ideas I had, they're like, yeah, that sounds good. That sounds good. And then I make sure they're listening. I'm like, yeah. Then I'm going to put her in a really tight outfit with leather and a plunging V-neck and high heels. You think that's going to work? And they're just like silence. And I'm like, I don't know these women well enough for them to know that I'm an asshole and I'm just joking around. But I think they
Yeah.
know. I don't. It was one case where I didn't quite know my audience, but luckily they laughed.
Mm. Yeah. Well, yeah. As long as you can backtrack that one before you hang up, I
Yeah.
think you'll be
No,
fine.
I did. I did. Like, listen, obviously I wrote two decent Batgirl stories already. Like, I'm not an idiot. I know not to put her in a plunging V-neck or whatever. Yeah, but I noticed a lot of my people, my readers, and I meet a lot of people, both from the left and right, and a lot of dudes from the right love Batgirl, and they don't love her in a TNA way. They like her because she's a
Sure.
good, well-rounded character, and they think she's awesome, which I think is a really
Sure.
positive thing for female characters in comics. And
Yeah.
yeah.
Definitely. Yeah. I think she really is kind of a fairly unique character overall because of that.
Hmm.
I think the circumstances behind her becoming Batgirl and the circumstances around her being Batgirl,
Hmm.
and yeah, even the relationships that she has with the other Bat family characters is fairly unique because
Yeah.
even if you take another step outward
Yeah.
to some of the next level characters like Catwoman or Talia al Ghul or like Huntress or
Right.
Harley, there's always trauma built in there. There's always, more sex appeal built in there.
Hmm.
She is fairly unique in that she is for lack of a better term, a normal person.
Right. Yeah. She's not disturbed. She doesn't have a crazy dramatic event in her life. Um,
Which, I think that's probably, I mean, aside from the obvious benefits of having a high profile handicapped character,
mhm.
I think that's probably one of the reasons why people gravitated to her as Oracle so much is because Oracle, when she's Oracle, she actually has something that she's like dealing with. She has an internal character conflict.
Hmm.
Whereas Barbara kind of doesn't really, again, generalizing, I haven't read every Batgirl comic in the world, but just based off of the concept of who her character
Yeah.
is, she doesn't have that like internal struggle thing
Right.
that most of these characters do
Right.
to a different degree.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying that means I'm not saying that means she should have gotten shot in the back, but
Right.
it's just an interesting thing to look at,
Right.
the two characters.
Yeah. Right.
What would you draw in this
I had a
episode?
good answer for this. I I'd like to draw the train sequence with the train car underwater and the car
Hmm.
popping out of the building. I think anytime you have a panel where characters like high above the ground and you can put some negative space under them, it's always cool. And I really enjoy drawing water. And I was going to ask you, just talk about comic art for a second. What
Yeah.
do you have a set of tricks you use to draw water? This is sort of like our shrubbery leaf conversation. You asked me about this, I'm
Mm.
like, and I counted at the time. I was like, I think I have 5 different types of leaves I basically draw, and I just recycle
Mm.
them. And the same thing for me, I have the same approach with water. I'm wondering what your take is on it.
Honestly, I haven't really drawn water that
Okay.
much. It's the all of the books that I've drawn have been fairly
Right.
landlocked. So, what I will say, there are certain things that intimidate me
Mhm.
as an artist, and water is one of
Right.
them. Specifically, how to handle reflections, because
Yeah.
what I'm doing now is the book that I'm doing, Bloody
Mhm.
Hell. A lot of it takes place in World War One, where the rain is pouring, so there's lots of puddles and stuff.
Right.
And I am always gun shy about how to handle reflections in
Yeah.
water and how much to do, how little to do, you're fantastic at that stuff. I don't know how you do that, but it's I haven't figured it out
When
yet.
so it's funny when I took on the book called The Wake, which is with Scott Snyder. It was sort of like the abyss. A lot of water in the book. I took it knowing,
Mm,
okay, I'm gonna get through my. I'm going to discover the mystery of drawing water. I'm going to figure out how I'm going to draw water. And every time I take a
mm,
book, I know there's going to be a new challenge that I haven't addressed for. Like when I drew Curse of the White Knight, I didn't really know how I would handle fire in so many different
mm,
types of forms. Like I've drawn fire, I've drawn explosions and stuff like that before, but it's never been so much of a character in a book that I had sorted out my the Sean Murphy approach to fire, so to speak.
sure, sure.
So when I did the wake, I'm like, all right, I'm a little afraid of drawing water. Let's get into it. I'm gonna throw myself into the deep end, no pun intended, uh, and figure this out. And I came up with four different types of water. It's basically all for me. That's all I'm drawing. You have explosive water, which is if you take a baseball bat, slam it into water. If a character hits water, you need to have that splash, drippy, explosive water. Um,
Hmm.
Two is like mirror reflective water, which is my favorite to draw because I find it easy. You just draw, if you put the camera right on the water and draw a character far away in a pond, you can draw that character flipped with some creative, like rippling rings around it. And it's actually pretty easy. It's like they're almost, knee deep in glass, so to speak.
Right,
So we
right.
have explosive water, we have glass water. You have flowing water, like the way a river flows over smooth rocks. It's kind of like lumpy water. It's just
Right.
sort of like the water has muscles to it. It's kind of hard to explain. And then the fourth kind is choppy water. So water that's been hit by wind. So if you're drawing sailboat scene, you have more than likely you have choppy water. And choppy water does not reflect at all, which is kind of easy, but you need
Mm,
to have a new texture in mind for how you're going to ink that. And most of the water that you see is usually a mix of two or three or four of these types of water. So like even a river will have sort of flowy, chunky water, but there will be explosive water when the waterfall hits the pond or whatever. You know what I mean?
sure,
So
sure.
I'm sure no
Yeah.
one's listening anymore.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to pull out my copy of The Wake when I start the next chapter in my book, because
Yeah,
it's got Vikings on ships and stuff,
yeah.
so I'm gonna have to
You're
figure
going
out
to
how
be
to do
dealing
it.
with choppy water then, with the explosive water at the
Yeah,
front of the bow.
my method of doing it is that what I wanted to ask you, if you is it something that you like practiced beforehand, or were you just practicing on the page? Because what I end up doing is, if I get to one of those parts, I go, well, let's give it a shot, and then I draw it, and then I ultimately go, well, that didn't work. I guess I got to do it again.
Yeah, I mean, because you use a lot of dry brush, that's not the way to ink
Mm,
water. Like water should feel fluid.
yeah,
So don't use dry
right.
brush on that. In fact, when I ink water, I'll dip my inked brush into water so it's super flowy. Now, when you
Sure.
scan it, you're going to have to adjust the levels so you can darken all your lines. But you need to have water that's very flowy. Like you really shouldn't be using crow quill on water. You shouldn't be using dry brush. You shouldn't be using angles. It should be smooth. Like you can kind of use
Mm,
angles on choppy water, but even then, you got to be really careful. Yeah, it seems like a
yeah.
simple texture, but if you dive in without having a plan, it could go wrong really quick.
Yeah, I was doing a panel not too long ago where there's this big kind of like puddle
Mhm.
area, and I had done one thing, I had hated it, so I got my whiteout pen and I whited the whole thing
Mhm.
out, and I just kind of did some thin lines or something to show the surface of the water,
Mhm.
and then I had my toothbrush out and I was spraying
Yeah.
droplets onto the page,
Mhm.
right? And this big, huge fucking blob dripped off the end of the toothbrush, landed right on that part that I had just whited out. And so after I got finished swearing, and my dog had gone away because he gets scared when I do that, I wiped it off. I didn't wait for it to dry. I like scrambled for a piece of toilet paper or something, and then I just blotted it and wiped it
Mhm.
off. And after I did that, I kind of looked at it and I got my whiteout pen out again, and I put a couple white lines through
Mhm.
it, and I was like, man, that actually works perfectly as like a reflection. So I just left
Yeah,
it in,
man.
and it works. It worked pretty well.
That's illustration technique. Bernie Fuchs used to use that. If you look at we were talking about him on text the other day, but they would
Yeah,
actually
master.
like put a coat over the painting near the boat or whatever. It was like a clear
Mm,
coat, so it would, if anything wet went on top of it, it would beat up. And he would actually
yep.
just throw down messy slops of water and let it fall wherever, and it read to the viewer as splashy water. And it was like a super easy
Yeah,
technique that I don't know if he invented it. I'm sure they all met together and shared their
I know.
secrets.
A big airbrushing technique that I learned. I was watching a thing about how they do like goalie helmets in
Yeah,
hockey. Is they'll take like a
of
spray
course you're
bottle,
watching
spray
that.
it. Yeah, they'll take a spray bottle, they'll spray it with water, and then they'll hit it with an airbrush. And so you've got the beaded up water
Yeah.
that hits with an airbrush, and then the beads dry, and it looks like water. The paint dries in the shape of water
Oh
droplets.
yeah.
It's really cool.
Have you ever tried the salt technique? You
No.
put down a wash and you just throw grains of salt on top of it while it's still wet, and
Yeah.
it creates these like crazy psychedelic-ish patterns that you really,
Oh,
yeah, it's like a
cool.
super easy, cheap way to get some cool effects. You really can't control it too
Huh.
well, but it is pretty fun.
I'll have to try that for my next chapter. It gets a little
Yeah.
weird. Anyway, back to the
Back to
show.
Batman.
Uh, what I would
Oh yeah,
draw.
sorry.
No, that's fine. I actually had a kind of a subtle one. I really liked the scene as much as I didn't like what he was doing, waiting around playing pool. I really liked the scene where Batman reads the bucktooth guy's lips
Hmm.
through the telephone
Hmm.
booth.
Oh yeah.
And I was thinking about, because they do the whole thing without sound essentially, so it's all visual storytelling. And I was watching that going like, that would be really fun to try and do on a page or so, just to kind of
Really?
work out the storytelling technique of showing how he's reading that guy's
Well, I
lips.
mean, you wouldn't be drawing the guy's lips like moment to moment storytelling like an animator. Like now he's saying an
No,
L.
no,
No,
no, no,
okay,
no,
okay.
no, no, no. Just like trying to figure that out about how you would show that visually. I think would be interesting, because I like that sort of thing where you take a
Yeah.
moment to just use a page to break down something a little bit
Right.
smaller than the big
Yeah.
keyframe moments you usually have in
Yeah.
comics. So that'd be fun, I
Yeah,
think.
I mean, I like that stuff because you would do like panel one, you see the guy in the phone, but with panel two, you see Bruce standing 100 feet away. Panel three, you zoom in on the guy talking. Panel four, zoom in on Bruce squinting. Repeat, zoom in even more. Go back to the guy's face, like that kind of thing. And pretty soon you
Yeah,
got a
yeah,
whole page of like silent storytelling, moment to moment. By final on panel six or eight, or whatever the last panel is, Batman has the information or whatever. I love that
yeah.
stuff.
And that's
And I
yeah.
always write myself stories that are so complicated where I don't have room to do that shit. But I love that stuff.
Yeah, and it always stands out too, because people recognize that when they can see that you're taking the time to
Yeah.
tell the story in a more specific to comics style
Yeah.
way.
What's shitty about that stuff too, though, is when you send a script in and you have a page or two like that, that's the first thing a bad editor, is going to lock in on. Be like, well, do you think we could like put some story in here? Do you think we could put some word
Right?
balloons?
Yeah.
If you don't add any word balloons, it looks like we forgot to letter this page. So
Yeah.
the suits, or the editors, or bad editors, I should say, not good editors, bad editors immediately hawk in on that, and they're like, we need to add some stuff here.
Yeah. I've been surprised at how much of that I've noticed in certain
Yeah.
places. But the
Not that I'm saying all editors
what
are
else was I
bags. I really don't need to get attacked on Twitter again for that. That was fun.
Yeah. Yeah, I really enjoy that stuff. And the thing that I don't like, though, is I appreciate, as someone who's drawing it, if it's written by someone else, I feel like I would like it in the script if it was just sort of page 8, Bruce reads the guy's lips, draw it however you want. Because I've seen scripts where it's like stuff like that, where it's like, okay, panel 1, he's looking at this. Panel 2, this happens. Panel 3, then you're like 10 panels in, and it's like, I appreciate what you're trying to do, but this is not necessarily the way I would go about doing this, and it makes it honestly hard to read.
Yeah.
And hard to lock in on what the important thing is. So if you tell me what you need to happen on this kind of page that you want something kind of different done, then I can take it from there.
I mean, so not all artists can do that, though, is the thing, because I'm writing for an Italian artist, and there's a language barrier, even though he speaks English. And if you don't tell him, he just won't get it, honestly. And even you need to explain it in detail, especially because we have a different culture. Some of the jokes or some of the whatever, it's just a communication problem. Like you and I can take a script that's one page. It's like, all right, Sean/Clay, I'm going to have a lip reading scene at a phone booth. Do it however you want. You have 8 panels. Go. You and I know what to do with that, but some artists just don't know what to do with that.
Right.
They see that as a 2-panel problem. Like, okay, guy's talking, and then the next panel, Bruce is looking, and that's it. What else do I need to draw? Like, they don't get the Scorsese-ness that you're talking about or whatever, you know?
Right. Yeah. I've noticed that I have I go back and forth about how much detail I like in my scripts, because I don't know if I like the Marvel thing where it's just a general breakdown of every page and you just do whatever you want. I feel like I need a little bit more structure than that.
It seems kind of lazy to me, honestly.
Yeah. But every now and then, if there's one page or so where it's like, here's what we're trying to do, do it however you want, then I enjoy that.
Yeah. If it's a contained scene, like a girl is escaping from a fire, she cuts out the fire escape. You have 8 panels. Go. That's the kind of stuff I like.
Yes.
But when the page,
exactly.
when the 22 pages of script are so vague and the dialogue isn't even there yet, and it's like, all right, I feel like I'm kind of going out half-cocked here, but I hope you can figure it out when you get the artwork back. And if you don't like it, then it's your own fucking fault for not writing a full script. But, like you said, Marvel's been doing it that way. I mean, I imagine if, Scott Snyder gets hired by Marvel, they're going to let him write full scripts because that's what Scott writes. So.
Right. Yeah. I mean, I don't know if you've ever seen an Alan Moore script, but he writes like pages upon pages for one panel.
I couldn't do that.
Everybody does it differently.
That sounds like.
And he does. I just saw one the other day. I saw someone put a picture up of it on Twitter. It's all capital letters. It's like no paragraph breaks.
Jesus Christ.
And it's like just a wall, an 8.5 by 11 wall
all
of capital
caps
letters.
of Alan Moore screaming at you.
Oh my God. Oh boy. Anyway.
Yeah, and then writing 9-panel grids, like I hate 9-panel grids. I think they're boring. I know that there's a place for them. I think Watchmen is brilliant, and I get why other books like mimic that. But to me, it's like comics should be doing things that other mediums can't do. Having a nice panoramic shot followed by a medium shot followed by a close-up and breaking up your panel shapes and sizes is what comics excels in. So to just do a 9-panel grid, it's like, God, man. Yeah, turn off the oxygen in this room because I don't want to breathe anymore.
Not to start an argument this late in the show, so maybe we can do this some other
time. Is it about redheads? Because I know what I'm going to say.
But I think there are people who would say that thing that you just described is something that isn't exclusive to comics because that's what they do in movies all the time. Whereas something like the design put into a 9-panel grid is very unique to comics.
But each panel is designed to be read as a still of a movie. Whereas the comic book page, by changing the shapes and sizes of the panels, you can create a distill style work of art. And it's more enticing as an illustration. When you lay out 9-panel grids where all panels are the same, you're basically saying this should be a movie or TV show. The only reason there are 9 panels on this page is because it conveniently holds 9 squares. And when we turn the page for 9 more panels. You're just missing out on so many things you could be doing and experimenting with.
Yeah, I'm not saying I disagree with you. I think.
Oh, I know what you're doing. You're doing the Clay slow sip of beer contrarian podcast statement.
Oh no! You'll know when I do that. No, I'm just saying. I think I would be interested to hear a discussion about that because I think that there are people who would view it the opposite way. I'm not saying that I do.
People whose books that would be an interesting. People whose books sell less than mine, I'm sure would disagree with that. End of
Yeah,
argument.
way to put your thumb on the scale there. Anyway, what would you rate this episode?
I'd go 4.5. I'd say maybe a 4.
Yeah. Yeah, I think I was thinking of 4. I actually think this is one of the more consistent two-parters as well.
That's a good point.
Because usually their two-parters, are like one is better than the other. This one's pretty solid all the way
Yeah,
through.
well, like you said, the writer team, the animations, I think it was all the same. So yeah, like with Clayface, I think they switched it up a little bit halfway through, but this one was pretty consistent.
Yeah, definitely.
Um,
But yeah, I think that's going to do it for Shadow of the Bat. It's funny. I don't know if it was because of the Batgirl project that you're working on that it put it in my mind, but I have been actually reading a lot of Batgirl lately,
yeah.
and I really enjoy it. I actually have been I have Batgirl Year 1 on my shelf that I'm looking forward to reading, which looks really
That
nice.
is the go-to. Both of my female editors, not that it doesn't matter if they're female. Most of my editors said that is the one that's by their side that you need to refer to. And I've read that one and I love that one. I haven't read it for a while.
The great artwork.
Yeah, really simple. Like I look at art like that, I'm like, man, why can't I just be simple? Why do I have to be so complicated with everything? This guy has like 5-hour work days or something. This is crazy.
Yeah, but I'm looking forward to seeing her on the show again. I think she's a good character. She definitely breaks things up.
Yep.
So that's going to be it for Shadow of the Bat Part 1 and 2. We're going to do a little bit of creative jumping because there's a single and then there's a two-parter. So I think we're going to go do the 2 singles first. So we're going to do, next episode, we're going to do Blind as a Bat and His Silicon Soul. Ooh, the return of Hardak. That should be interesting.
So Ranger, I don't think a Ranger is an offensive thing. I'm looking it up right now. Oh no, I'm looking up the word Ranger. Wait. Stupid.
All right. Well, you can continue to do that, and you'll know if it's offensive if I bleeped it out.
What does Ranger Redhead need for Australians? Here we go. I don't think it's offensive. Go ahead.
Thank you to everyone who's listening. If you like the show, please give us a rate or review on iTunes. Thanks, guys. We'll see you next time.
Let the good times roll.